All right, well, we're running a little bit late here, but the hour being 3:04. Council to order this 10th of May, 2021. We have an agenda before us. Are there any additions or deletions?
Yes, Your Worship. One addition, the in camera. It's advice from officials as per the MGA, Municipal Government Act, Section 197.2, Freedom of Information legislation, Section 24.1G, in regarding the multiplex planning.
Okay. All right. Accept a motion to adopt this agenda as amended.
I so move, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hill. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? I think what I'll do is I'll ask if anyone's opposed. It's easier that way. Anyways, move on. The first item on the agenda were the minutes of the regular council meeting of April 26th for consideration. Would someone like to move we adopt those?
I will, Your Worship. Councillor Bates.
Thank you, Councillor Bates. Any errors or omissions to be noted? If not, all in favor or anyone opposed to the motion? Okay, carried. Next item are the minutes of the agenda and priorities meeting of May the 3rd for consideration. Would someone like to move we adopt those as presented?
I will move, Your Worship. Councillor Barclay.
Thank you, Councillor Barclay. Anyone opposed? Carried. All right, we have a public hearing, and I'll just quickly run the agenda before everyone here for everyone's benefit. Is that the first thing the staff will introduce the bylaw and its contents, and we will ask if there's anyone in support of this bylaw. It'll be given a few minutes, and then we will ask if anyone is opposed to the bylaw and wishes to speak. So any further comments from administration and council's questioning, and then of course we'll conclude the agenda, the meeting. So the hearing. So I hereby declare the public hearing related to bylaw 1470-A72 road closure bylaw 1668-2021. I'll ask administration to proceed with the bylaw.
Oh, thank you very much, Your Worship, members of council. The voice is Craig Teal, Director of Planning, Parkland Community Planning Services, and I will be presenting the two bylaws to council for the public hearing. The purpose of bylaw number 1470-A72 is to redesignate Lot 11, which is in the northeast area of Innisfail, kind of the top north end of 49th Avenue, from its current designation of R2, Residential General District, to established industrial IES district. The second bylaw, so you're getting a bonus of two bylaws per public hearing, 1668-2021 is a road closure for a portion of lane that separates Lot 11 from Lot 12, which is to the east of Lot 11. And on the graphic that you can see on the screen, you'll see the yellow highlighted area that shows as green on our report, but it's yellow in the screen. And that is the road closure portion that we're talking about. To the immediate left of that, or the west, that is Lot 11, which is currently designated R2. And then the surrounding lands all within the red box, and to the south and to the kind of northwest are designated industrial, established industrial district. Your Worship, the purpose of the bylaw for the road closure is to be able to consolidate lot 11 and 12, and that means we do have to deal with the intervening land of the lane. The proposal ultimately for the disposal of the land is to use that to obtain future road widening along the east side of lot 12, which is the right-hand side of that red box that you can see on the screen. So the future expansion of 48th Avenue northwards to be an arterial, as per the North area, Innisfail area structure plan that you're going to see later on in the meeting, would be facilitated at a future date. As part of that process, we then to consolidate the parcels, we do have to deal with the zoning designation on the properties. And that's the reason for the move from R2 to established industrial, so that lot 11 and lot 12 have the same, can be consolidated and then used for that industrial purpose. Both bylaws have been circulated to referral companies and referral agencies, sorry, for input. Most have come back with no objections to either the rezoning or to the road closure. Alberta Transportation is one of the key ones. They too have indicated support in principle for this. And of course, the road closure bylaw, if council agrees to move ahead, its next stop is on to the Minister of Transportation for their approval before coming back to council eventually once the minister's staff have dealt with it for second and third reading. The one company, Echo Gas, has been in touch with us. And this is not contained in the RFD. They got in touch with us after the agenda preparation, clarifying their previous comments that they do in fact need an easement across the lane, the very west end, for their existing facilities. Right now they have an easement across lot 11 and it goes across other private property, but it crosses the lane as public property. So they do have to get us some easement documents, which will ultimately have to make its way to the minister's office for approval. The rezoning change from residential to industrial was also advertised and sent out to adjacent landowners. There is one set of comments that was received prior to the agenda cutoff. That's contained in the report indicating a lack of support or opposition. This is from the immediate property owner to the west. And you can see their expressed concerns in that RFD. It includes things such as diesel and fumes and noise from trucks being warmed up in the winter or being stored generally on the parcel if it's an expansion of the Promax truck operation, which you see to the north, and concern for how that transition could be made. In response to some of those specific comments raised by that landowner, Your Worship, staff offer that at the time of a development permit for redevelopment of the consolidated lot 11 and 12, so those issues of transition from residential to industrial can be addressed by the development authority using such techniques as berms, landscaping, separation distance, fencing, some of which are suggested in the landowner's letter himself. One other suggestion that is made in the letter that's more difficult to accommodate is the actual dedication of a 15-foot wide strip, basically given to that property owner from the other owner of lot 11. That certainly can't be facilitated without the full consent of the owner of lot 11. So the staff are recommending that instead to deal with that issue, if town council agrees to the consolidation of the closure of the lane, consolidation of the lots and the redesignation, that the development authority use the tools available in the land use bylaw to address that transition issue. With that, Your Worship, I'd be happy to field any questions.
Okay, those in the gallery certainly have, this is your opportunity to speak up. If anyone wishes to speak in favor of the proposal. CAO Becker, are you, who's monitoring the gallery?
Ken,
You hear
is
me,
the-
Jim?
Hello?
Sorry, Todd. I could just see that I let the town of Innisfail, a couple of residents in council chambers with Ken, and he's going to figure out how to let them speak.
Okay, we'll give him a minute here.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
please state your name, sir.
Just a second, it's me. So I'm gonna pass it off to our first speaker. I'll get you.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes,
I hear my name is Eddie Edwards and my husband, John Newsham, own the property that has just been sold. And this is where the bylaw is of the new owner wants to make changes and we are in support.
okay. Anyone else?
Good afternoon. It's Daryl Hillman.
Yes, Daryl.
I'm representing the landowner that has purchased the Newsham property. And I can confirm that the transition suggestions as made by Craig Teal would certainly be in keeping with what the new landowner would be looking for to solve, either by fence or trees or berm or whatever would be required. So all should be good there with the new owner, in my view.
Okay. All right. Anyone else?
That's all in the gallery.
Okay. All right, then I'll ask the question, is there anyone opposed to this bylaw proposal? If there are, please speak up.
Don't believe there's anyone else, Mayor.
There is or isn't?
There is no one else
Okay,
participating.
right. Okay, well, if there's no one speaking in opposition to it, then is there any questions of council on this amendment proposal? We've been through it, I know, but just if not, no other discussion, I guess what I'll do is entertain a motion then to close this public hearing.
I so move, your worship. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion? Carried? Opposed? I guess the next thing on the agenda is then to, if we want to proceed with these RFDs now, or do you want to leave them till later in the community services part of the agenda? Okay, because I think there may be people there that would probably prefer if we did proceed with those discussions. So if it's all right with you, we'll move up to item 7.1, and that's regarding the RFD of this land use bylaw amendment.
Can I just interrupt? I think there is someone trying to speak from the gallery still.
Oh,
They have
okay. I'm sorry.
I'm not sure if Vanessa can let them speak.
There.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, Jim, it's Don Leach here.
Hi, Don.
Hi, we are definitely opposed of that bylaw. I just couldn't get through there before.
Oh, okay.
They should have a letter.
You guys, we sent a letter in.
You submitted an opposition letter in opposition to it?
Yeah, we sent in a letter to the
Okay.
town there
All right.
and had a few concerns, but yeah, we're not for that.
Okay. All right. Are you an adjacent landowner there, Don?
We are, yes.
Okay.
We own the property right to the west.
Okay.
We're very close, we're very close to that property line.
Yeah.
And we're gonna be from, we go from residential right beside us to commercial, real close.
Okay, I'm going to ask Megan, if you would, do you have that letter handy?
So I believe in the RFD, Craig presented those landowner comments, and those are taken from that submission.
Okay,
That is correct, your worship. You can find those on page 58 on your agenda.
oh, okay.
Your Worship, should I withdraw my motion for adjournment of the public hearing and go back into the public hearing? So these comments are,
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but I think you're right, Councillor Harrison. I think we should go back and we had closed it thinking it was, and then Mr. Leach was able to get online after. So if it's all right with council, I would reopen this public hearing for additional information for the time being in light of the communication breakdown we had, that if council has no objection, I would so move that reopen this public hearing. Now, we've had some people speak in favor of the bylaw proposal. Mr. Don Leach, I believe, has responded that he is opposed to the proposal. And Mr. Leach, do you have anything else you'd like to add besides your letter?
Well, pretty much that letter would give us a little bit of boundary, or like a little bit of a buffer zone between us. Like it's not,
It's all stated in the letter.
it's in the letter there.
Okay.
Well, Your worship, through to Dawn, in that last bullet point in the letter, you did say that, or the second last, I guess, like you like an 8-foot fence and some trees. I know we've kind of
Yeah.
tossed some ideas around as well. So you're okay as long as that is done, like through, it wouldn't be done here, but through MPC and as Craig said, the tools that are available there.
Yeah, like the fence, we've got a fence on the back side of our property to the north. I would just assume that would kind of carry on to onto this new property that would be commercial on the west side of, or the east side of us.
Carry on to the rest of the, doesn't go all the way across.
Yeah. But what we were looking for was, like, if they could give us 15 feet and leave that road,
Have the alley move.
the alley that's designated there, just move it over beside that extra 15 feet they give us. And then I guess we're probably okay with it then.
Just moves the boundary a little bit farther from the house.
So your worship, through to Craig, you said that would take a subdivision application, and I guess Mr. Hillman's on the call. I guess I would like to know whether he thinks his client would be in favor of that or not. And
Mr. Hillman, are you still with us? And is Mr. Hillman still with us?
Yes, I'm still in the council chambers here.
Okay, good.
Losing 15 feet of that land, it just wouldn't make a lot of sense for the owner. Yes, there has to be separation considerations, of course. Mr. Leach's house is across a drive lane that is already on his land, so the separation is actually there to the house. And additional, like we talked about, the fence, 8-foot fence and trees and berm, what have you, could be added. So, but I can't imagine that the owner would want to do a further subdivision.
okay, thank you. I understand. Thank you.
Okay, I think we've got the information, but I'm a little, I mean, can we go back and have these individuals meet again and see if they can come up with a solution to this situation regarding?
Yeah, like us and the new landowners, Jim?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm game for that. But what about the existing alleyway? Like that would give us that distance of that alley.
Well, that's the thing. That's why I'm saying I don't like to make this kind of decision here. You know, at this level, that we can certainly postpone this public hearing and go back to open it up for some negotiations between the two concerned parties. And I don't know. I'm certainly, Mr. Hillman, would you be prepared to sit down with Mr. Leach and see if you can come up with an alternative?
Okay, let me just. I'm just waiting for her to unmute. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. I certainly am willing to talk to Dawn. No problem in that. I don't know if there's an easy solution in that all we're looking for, I guess, is to accomplish for him the separation or the transition. The transition was between industrial and residential all in one owner. And here we're asking for a transition between two different owners that are on opposing interested sides, of course. But delivering up 15 feet of land to another landowner is, I think, asking too much. But if the answer to your question, Mr. Mayor, would be yes. I'd be willing to meet with Mr. Leach and see if we can't discuss this and come up with an amenable solution.
And your worship, I think too, looking at that diagram and the boundaries, I mean, it would be a bit odd to cut off 15 feet in the one corner along the west side. So I would hope that maybe Dawn would be happy with trees and berm and fence, and because I don't know that other is a viable solution. It would be difficult to do and have to go through the whole subdivision thing again. So anyway, we can maybe let Dawn and Daryl have a chat and go from there.
I think I would.
What about the laneway in regards to the town moving that laneway there to the west side of that?
Well, that's the kind of thing that should be discussed, I think, further before you want to proceed with a decision on this, because, you know, I think there's some solution there, but it may not be 100% for both parties, but I think there's a potential there for a solution. But
Worship, we have another comment from the gallery.
yes.
Council, I just like when you're considering this, to have a closer look at the map, and that little piece of property that's residential is the only little piece of property to the north, to the east, and to the south is already industrial. So it's just changing one little piece of property.
Okay. Well, I think I would like council to consider, I guess, postponing this public hearing until our next regular council meeting for to give the administration and the concerned parties together with the hopefully come up with a solution. But unless someone has objection to that. Mr. Craig, do you see any reason why we couldn't do that?
Your worship, I'll ask CEO Becker to help me out with the process steps, which I believe he does want to speak to. So yes, certainly you can postpone a public hearing to get additional information. We just have to make sure that it's fair. And we have to re-notify everyone that was participating in today about whatever date we're going to be using for the kind of round 2 or continuation of our public hearing, especially if it's to give some time for the other parties to meet and talk through some options.
Okay.
So that does mean we do need their contact info if we don't already have it. Preferably emails would be probably the most useful.
CAO Becker, do you have any comment?
Yeah, I was gonna ask Craig just on process, which you explained. I have a little bit of concern with council entering into negotiation between two landowners. Obviously, you have differing opinions and desires there. So again, you can postpone public hearing, but there is some process to that. My question to you, council, is there any other additional information you require to make your decision, or are you leaving it to the basis of negotiation between two adjacent landowners?
All right, I'd certainly be interested to hear some comments from council.
One question I have, this is Councillor Bates, trying to, of course, Zoom's tough. I'm wondering if Don Leach got on in time to hear all of Mr. Teal's introduction, because it explains some of the avenues for
transition. Yeah.
Transition.
Mm-hmm.
Did he hear all of Craig Teal's introduction? Maybe we need to redo that.
No, I think we heard most everything.
Okay.
We were kind of busy trying to figure out how to get on the thing.
Yeah. I think if we met with Mr. Hillman, I think that would be our next step for sure.
Okay. All right.
Just to be clear, your worship, then certainly the town will be sitting out those conversations. It's the information that's coming back to council after those conversations are had. And it's the information, maybe we found a solution, or we tried and we couldn't find a solution. So here we are back for council to make a decision. But staff will be sitting that one out too.
Right.
No, your worship, I think I'm comfortable moving forward and letting MPC do the rest of it. I mean, that's where the tools sit to make the necessary changes. And, you know, I'm not sure that, I don't know, not sure what you think, CEO Becker, but that's kind of seems to me where the fix sits, not here.
Your worship, to Councillor Barkley, it's a tough one between there's some difference in opinions between adjacent landowners. Council is tasked to either move into the bylaw and the changes required or not. On the other hand, there is willingness for discussion between representatives of the two adjacent landowners. From administrative, actually, I'd be interfering with the public hearing if I provided my administrative perspective. I think it's detailed in the administrative report. But I agree with you, Councillor Barkley. There are provisions as per Municipal Planning Commission and their ability to apply conditions based on the willingness of MPC to do that.
Any other comments from council?
Sure, I would agree with Councillor Barkley as well. I think we can leave this in MPC's hands if we approve it. And even if after this is all done, if the two landowners wanted to negotiate a land swap after the fact, I'm sure maybe Mr. Teal could comment on that. They could possibly do that afterwards. But to me, we've I think we've got all the information we need now to make this decision. And I think the fencing, the berms, the trees and all that, the MPC could put in place would take care of it.
Okay. Well, I think, well, I guess rather than to continue the public hearing, then our option would be to close this public hearing and proceed with the second reading and give MPC an opportunity to deal with it. Is that what you're suggesting, Councillor Reberger?
Yes, that's what I'm suggesting.
Yeah. Mr. Leach, would you, do you understand that process, what we're proposing?
Say it again.
Pretty much, you're just gonna go ahead and change the zoning, is that what you're saying?
No, MPC will be involved in the how we deal with the transition zone that you're talking about is all. It would be.
No, he's right, Mr. Mayor. He's right. We would deal with the zoning now, and MPC would deal with it later when they develop when they come forward with what they want to do with the land.
Yeah. Okay.
What about this? What about the alley with the designated alleyway there right now? Can we move it over beside our property? That's the town's decision, is not?
That one I will with your worship. So certainly the decision to close the lane is the town's decision, and the decision on how to dispose of the lane at a future date to which property is the town's decision. The part that's not the town's decision is the owner of lot 11 giving up the west 15 feet of the property. So that's where that the consent of that property owner would definitely be needed to facilitate that 15-foot strip if that was to occur. Going back in terms of process steps, if council moves ahead with second and third reading of the materials as presented, and at a later date, the two parties do decide to come back and actually transfer that 15-foot strip to the property owner to the west, they would definitely have to do a subdivision process. They would also have to redesignate that 15-foot strip to R2 to match the property to the west, as opposed to the industrial, which is what's proposed right now.
So this is Councillor Bates. What I think I heard in the initial presentation of that lane was that it would be moved to the east side of the property to facilitate the extension of the current access. That was in the initial presentation. Mr. Teal, maybe you could confirm that?
Certainly, your worship, members of council. So the trade-off for obtaining the lane is future road widening that the town needs along the west side of 49th Avenue to basically create the arterial road that would go north per the North Area Structure Plan and extend ultimately up and get over to C&E Trail. So the interim mechanism that's proposed, and I believe the land issue will come back to council, is a road acquisition agreement. So you don't see a strip right now. Basically, a road acquisition agreement means at a future date, when the municipality is ready to go ahead and build the road, they send in the surveyor, and we've already decided on you're transferring it, you're just signing the documentation. But for the time being, that strip would remain under private ownership.
And your worship, through to Craig, I'm assuming at that time, once that was completed and the road was widened and going north, then that would get rid of that traffic, heavy traffic through that residential area as well. Correct? It now winds its way out to C&E Trail.
Certainly, I'm trying to remember the truck route and rules on that particular, but certainly that would give them one less reason to, I believe they are able to use the shortest distance from truck route to destination. I just can't remember the designation of C&E Trail. I think it's truck route as well. So certainly, yes, when that other alternative road is built, they could go, if they're northbound, it's probably more direct. Just also, Your Worship, if I can, so some of the concerns around which road the access is oriented towards, that too can be addressed by the Development Authority at the time. It doesn't have to be out towards 49th, the access or on the street in between Lafarge and this property. It could actually still be off to the east end, aligning with that arterial. The other aspect is when we look at the activities that some of the industrial uses may bring, things like where you're parking your tractor trailers overnight without the actual tractor that generates the noise, the diesel fumes, and the warming up in the winter. Maybe that activity comes closer to the residential and the tractor warm-up area is where the existing shop is, or on the more eastern part of the shop or site away from residential. So there's a couple other tools that the Development Authority could look at the time of a development permit coming forward.
Mr. Leach, did you have your hand up?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay, sorry. There's one on my screen here. I wasn't sure, Don. Okay, I guess I'll leave it to council at this time, but I think we've discussed it enough that we can close this hearing and then proceed if we want after that point to recommended motions. So would someone, I think everybody's had an opportunity to clarify their situation now. Would someone like to move again that we close this public hearing?
I'd so move, Your Worship, that we close the public hearing. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Anyone opposed? Carried. Okay, in follow-up to that, I think we have a prepared recommendation here. Is someone prepared to support that recommendation motion? Or would you like?
I will move that we give second reading to bylaw 1470A72.
Okay,
I think I'm on the right one here.
thank you, Councillor Barkley. Any discussion?
And I do that because I'm quite confident that MPC can put the parameters in place that will satisfy Don. And, you know, we can work at that. As Craig says, we have, the MPC has the tools to do that. And we're not here to make people's life miserable. So I'm sure that we can find a solution.
Any other comments? No, if not, I'll ask the question then. Is anyone opposed to this motion to give second reading? Okay, motion's carried. Want to proceed to third reading?
I would move we give third reading to bylaw 1470A-A72.
Thank you, Councillor Reberger. Discussion? Anyone opposed to the motion? Okay, the motion's carried. Thank you. And then I guess council directs administration to prepare and submit the road closure package to the Minister of Transportation. Do you need a motion to that effect, CAO Becker?
Yes, we do, Your Worship.
Okay. Would someone like to make that motion then that we direct administration to submit the road closure package?
Point of order,
We're-
just a point of order.
Yes?
Do we not have, I believe the bylaw we just did is to change the land designation. We haven't done the one yet to close the road. So I think that motion would be premature. If I'm reading this right, we still have to give second and third reading to bylaw 68-2021.
I know Mr. Teal made comment that we were going to get two birds with one bullet here, but
You are, Your Worship. However, road closure bylaws do take a very different course. So prior to council being able to give second and third reading, The bylaw has to go up to the Minister of Transportation for his staff's review and approval. Then it will come back to council for second and third reading.
Okay, so what we're looking for is a first reading at least to direct administration, right?
That is correct, Your Worship.
Okay. Is someone prepared to make that motion?
So I'll make the motion that we give first reading to the closure of the road.
Okay,
If that's what's being requested, I want to make sure.
that's basically it, yeah.
Your worship, sorry to interject. So Craig's comment was that the recommendation is, as per the motion, recommended motion is to direct administration to prepare and submit the road closure package to the Minister of Transportation for consideration and approval. So the minister does his piece, and then it comes back to council, then administration to come back to you with a report asking for the bylaw approval.
So I'll make the motion that we direct administration to prepare and submit that package.
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah, we got ahead of ourselves a little bit there. Okay. Everyone understands Mr. Bates' motion? No discussion? Anyone opposed to the motion? Okay, motion's carried. Okay, so then we'll hear back from the minister and proceed with the road closure at that point in time. Is that correct? Okay. All right. Next on the agenda, we have a delegation. Mr. Bloxham and Cochran have proposed archery range. You're in the gallery, sir, or ma'am?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Oh, here it's all coming out. Okay, so the Innisfail Fish and Game is looking to bring in a archery range as an added bonus to the community. We're looking at just north of town on C&E Trail, as you can see. It's about 20 acres. To my understanding, it's the future area for the cemetery in about 15 to 20 years. The Innisfail Fish and Game would take care of all the costs and set up everything from the gate to the parking to all the items and everything like that. We were just essentially looking for an area where we could set that up and have that opportunity. Liability would be part or taken care of by the Innisfail Fish and Game, which would be people who had access to the range would have to be a member to the Fish and Game, Innisfail Fish and Game, to be able to do that. Do you have any questions?
How many acres do you need for the whole thing then?
Well, this area here is 20 acres, I believe. We talking with Megan Jenkins was looking at this area, and this is way more than ample room to be able to set up this, and we could have the future for a little bit of expansion. Also, an advantage of having bringing this to our community is there's already a similar one done up at Rimby, and this would be a once-a-year event, which obviously this is far into the future, but where they bring in 250 archers, and it'd be a great draw to our community to bring people to our community. Building it, if you look at the top right there, would have to be to certain specifications to be able to hold provincial and national competitions. And then the 3D target area, the rules for doing that is you need 24 3D targets. So that means like a foam deer or a foam elk or anything like that. And but the area that Mrs. Jenkins proposed was more than ample to be able to do that.
This is not gonna, there's gonna be some definite cost in this project. Have you? got a
Yeah,
proposal?
we've evaluated the whole cost. Right now, with my estimates, looking at the cost of creating the parking pad to all the targets, the storage facility with the sea cans, the 3D targets was about $30,000. I've been in communication with the Hinton Fish and Game when they built their facility. They got $70,000 from the government for grants. We already have $7,500 in grants, one from another local organization to be able to build this. The funding capabilities is we should be able to take care of that, no problem.
Haven't really gotten into it yet, so.
Your worship, through to Director Jenkins. Sorry, my computer cut out a little bit, the fun of Zoom. Is this going to be a lease situation, and have you had direct correspondence with Fish and Game, or where are we at in this process?
Yes, so I guess just for some background from council, so myself and Stephen have met with Archery or Innisfail Fish and Game on a couple of occasions now. They approached the town looking for potential space, and this site on CNE Trail was one of a couple of other locations of town-owned property that we put forward as potentials that they could consider looking at. And then they went back and put together sort of a site plan, and we sat down with them further to look at that. And then sort of the next step that they were directed was to come to council to see what council's position was on that. We haven't talked about any sort of fee for lease situation for the land. The property is currently leased on an annual basis, so that was part of the conversation, that we would have to terminate the current agricultural lease that we have on the property and give suitable notice. So this would likely be something that wouldn't occur until 2022. Yeah, and that's generally where we're at in the conversation.
Okay, thank you. Looks very interesting. Thanks.
Your worship, Councillor Harrison here through to the delegation. Yeah, great, great idea. I just have a couple questions. One being, is this going to be a phased-in project? I see a shooting range with shooting lanes, and then we see a sort of a live 3D practice area off to the south there. Is it going to be all built at the same time, or it will be phased in over, 2, 3, 5 years? And second question is, how big is the archery club right now? How many members do you have? Thank you.
To my understanding, the Innisfail Fish and Game have 75 members. The potential for it to grow is there's not really any facilities like this in central Alberta to this capability for outside. So we definitely have the ability to draw from Red Deer to any of the surrounding communities. The only facility that can hold provincial or national competitions is up in Lacrete, I believe. If we get the funding and the 3D targets, we're going to be able to get that. We should be able to do this all in 2022. That's why we gave ourselves a year just to kind of get ourselves organized and be able to do that and move forward.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Bates through to Director Jenkins. Refresh my memory. So what was our last projected future need for this area for cemetery?
So based on the work we did last year on the existing cemetery, we're 25 plus. If we utilize all of the areas identified in the infill plan for the cemetery. And that was one of the reasons why we looked at this space. It could be established, but there isn't a lot of permanent structures either. So if this could be a home for this type of facility for 20 or 25 years, and it could still could still potentially serve that long-term cemetery purpose when we get to that stage.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions of council?
Yes, your worship. More or less just a couple questions. What would it take for to the delegation? What would it take to become a member? I know that this is a actively growing sport. Archery is something that seems to be definitely on the rise, and something like this would be, I think, very exceptional. But what would it take to be able to become a member for, a citizen of Innisfail or anything like that? Is there a cap? Because obviously, I think you've alluded to it, it's very popular. But how would there be? Is there? I guess how would you become a member? And is there a capacity for something of this size or?
Membership for the Innisfail Fish and Game is $75, regardless if that's just the individual or a family. The membership cost is the same.
Okay.
As far as the capacity standpoint, I'm not sure. Like, that's a good question. I'd have to ask the Innisfail Fish and Game. What is the ability of a club like this or a facility like this be able to hold for access? Like, how is the question? Is you're asking like how many people can be on the range at once, or what are you asking?
Yeah, that would be essentially what it is. Just because obviously I do see that it would be one of those things that would have to be thought about pretty quickly, because I do think it would be, if it is established and it's that big of an area and there's nothing like that in central Alberta, I think it's going to have a huge uptake. And that was just one of my questions. And obviously safety is always on my mind. So.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So if you look at the most used thing here is going to be the shooting range at the top. And we provided some pictures to Megan there that the targets that we'll be using can be moved. So we'll have, like it could go from 10 meters to 20 meters to 30 meters to anything in between. And so the access to there, you could have multiple shooters at the shooting range at once. And same thing with people going. So like if you look at on the south where the shooting platforms are, people are going to have to go on the platforms, and so there'll be, so to have 24 targets, there's going to be 6 targets at each one. So you could have multiple people going, shooting at the targets and then moving to the next. I think probably from a capacity standpoint, 25 to 50. Like I'd have to brainstorm with the guys and see what that is, but really off the top of my head and my experience in other archery parks, that's probably what I'd look at this, at a time.
Perfect. And like I said, I understand it's kind of a floating question. I just wanted to understand how big it could be. And I think if it's council's desire, I definitely think it'd be a great idea.
And I think that's just where you put more structure into play. I have other people that do their archery, like the Springbrook Archers, and that's where you put on classes, right? So like you reserve a time. I was going to have my son on Thursday nights at 7:30, and so you would have a class of like a youth class of 10 kids to be able to do that, in a allotted time slot. That's another way where we could create multiple opportunities for people to go through at a 30-minute or 1 hour interval, just so that we don't bunch up those times all together.
Thank you for the clarity.
I have one question, David. Jim Romaine here. Is this the type of facility that bow hunters would use, or can you cross over with hunting apparatus with just recreational apparatus? And obviously they're different.
Absolutely, you'd be able to have both.
Would they?
Yeah.
It's surprising how many bow hunters are around the country, but they use some pretty stifling arrows.
Yeah, and so as you see, like on the south end where we have the 3D targets, you would take and have it shooting towards the inside, and then where you see that the dark spots, there's trees, right? And so versus shooting out, we, just in case anybody missed, we don't want that going in a farmer's field where they're going to get a hole in their tire or anything like that. And Mark Cochran and I walked the whole area just to take a look and make sure that we limited any kind of risk. So we would have people going through the 3D archery range all along that south fence, make their shots, and then follow everything back out that south fence just to minimize any kind of issues, and also limiting people to be able to go there because you had to be an Innisfail Fish and Game member. Therefore, we have those insurance policies in place to make sure that that's all protected and taken care of.
Okay, council, have you got any more questions?
I have a question, Your Worship, to Megan. Megan, just for clarity, this is really preliminary. Would you agree to test the waters of council to determine if this is an interested use of this land for a multi-year lease or an agreement, and that those negotiations have been initiated at this point?
No, at this point, we were hoping to get, whether it's some feedback from council as to whether we should proceed, what their thoughts are on that piece of property, on the proposal, and whether we should come back to council with some more of those details of the existing lease and the, a revisit on the cemetery, those types of conversations. But yeah, really an opportunity for the Fish and Game Club to present their idea and get some preliminary feedback on the idea.
Okay, any other comments or questions?
There's only one other thing that potentially might come up is if we do have a big event, what do we do about parking and everybody there? In the event that we had a big parking or a big event with 250 archers, what I'd really do is I'd talk to the Danes just down the road, whether it's half a mile or a mile, and just create a transportation to be able to have, if we had one event a year, to do that for transportation, just so that wasn't a concern with overflow parking.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be an issue, wouldn't it? Okay, well, if there's no further questions, I'll thank you, David, for your presentation, and certainly looks encouraging in my mind that we could do, we're always looking for new ideas, that's for sure.
Thank you for your time.
Sorry, David.
Okay, thank you.
I was just going to say, Your Worship, is that of interest of council to continue conversation with a delegate, with David and Fish and Wildlife to gather a little bit more detail? It's not committing you at this point, but just giving you that more finer detail to allow you to move into decision making. But unless you don't want administration to continue on and you'd like to explore further, so just maybe some, whether it's formal, informal, just some direction if we should proceed with further conversation with a delegate.
Your Worship, through to CAO Becker, I like the concept, and I would certainly endorse going ahead or having administration go ahead and fleshing out some of the details, which there are probably going to be many that need to be fleshed out. So it would be good if you could start that process. I think it's good being a bow guy. I agree with David that there isn't any place, and for bow hunters to practice, they either have to go to an indoor range or just go out onto someone's private land to practice their shooting skills. So I like the concept. I'd certainly like to move ahead, but there's a lot of details that need to be fleshed out, and I think we need to start somewhere. And I would endorse administration going ahead. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay. But now let's just go around to get a quick consensus of everyone. Councillor Hale?
Yes, Your Worship. I would also agree in principle. I like the idea, and and all the details hopefully can be explored. So I would be in support, yes.
Okay. Councillor Bates?
I'm in favor of further information.
Good. Councillor Reberger?
Yes, I as well would like to hear more, so let's get some more information.
Good. Councillor Barkley?
Yeah, definitely would like to get more information. So thank you.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's good. I didn't forget anybody, did I? Anyways, it's very encouraging. I wish you all the best of luck on this proposal, David. But I guess that's concludes our delegations.
So, Your Worship, you're probably used to me interrupting all the time, but
You want a motion?
maybe you're not used to that. But anyways, to make sure it's tagged on your action control and we don't lose that discussion, and
Okay.
just a reminder, maybe a motion in that regard would be appropriate.
Okay.
Thank
Who's
you.
willing?
I would so move, Your Worship, that we direct administration to go further with the information and fact-finding idea.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Any further discussion? Anyone opposed to the motion? Motion's carried. Thanks, Don. All right, next I see we have an RFD regarding the CAO Becker's report.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll be brief. Just some of the focus areas since last council meeting of April 26th. Administration's been working on forward thinking on strategic planning, according to council's strategic planning policy, to get new council ready, likely in January of 2022, to do a formal process of strategic planning. So more conversation to come to council in the near future. So just getting ready for that for the next council to help with their success. Also working on HR services developments. So we're working on increasing our service quality, I suppose, within the organization regarding HR supports to our employees. And other senior leadership team members attended the Local Government Administrators Association conference, at least partial parts of that conference, which was held within the mornings of April 28th to 30th. Also, I attended the AUMA Safe and Healthy Communities Committee meeting, which was appointed to. There's a meeting on April 30th, which is a day-long Zoom meeting. And one of the takeaways of that meeting, there was a delegation before this AUMA committee from the president of the Alberta Victim Services. And what this individual stated is that government is using the Victims of Crime Fund to hire more Crown prosecutors. So there's been a lot of work by Victim Services from a provincial organization, but also AUMA to ensure we're lobbying government to ensure that the money that has been allocated for the important service of victim supports, that it's allocated back to the victims and not reallocated to offset the cost of other government services. So that was one key area. And I'll certainly go back to my notes to highlight any other areas. One, of course, is and you see it within your council agenda, the support of municipalities to maintain RCMP as the core policing service within Alberta. So more to come there, and then also likely engage our committee, Police and Safe Communities Committee, with some of that work of AUMA, but some very important conversation to be had. Also spent time on land sale, land lease negotiations, which obviously not privy for public knowledge at this point. Also working on economic entity, having some discussions and trying to line up some of these discussions back into council and to see how you wish to proceed. Also, multiplex is ongoing administration, largely with, well, really it's an all team approach on the multiplex discussion. And yeah, and also took a couple of days off last week just to recuperate from some of the work up to this point. So if there's any questions of council, I'll be happy to answer your questions.
Any questions? Okay, and someone like to move that we accept the CAO's report for information.
I so move, your worship.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. Anyone opposed to the motion? Carried, thank you. Mr. Becker, the ECC COVID-19 update.
Thank you, your worship. I will inform you, I won't give you all the details, but town administration was informed by HS in general communication of communication they had locally regarding the May 15th family jamboree. So there was engagement by the multi-sector or multi-service approach through AHS, the town, and RCMP with those discussions. And for what I've heard recently, that jamboree has been canceled or postponed. I'm not sure which one, but I believe canceled. Other information regarding ECC, the town did receive a number of complaints prior to the new restrictions of non-compliance of some local businesses, which with those complaints, as per normal, are forwarded on to AHS for the management of those complaints. Town office, there has been some adjustments or readjustments again to some of the work rotations to minimize the interface of staff within the office during for sure the next 3 weeks. As you would have noticed on town media, social media, there was communication sent out to the public on, one is on facilities updates such as aquatic center temporarily closed, of course, arena, etc. So there's been some adjustments to our operations within our facilities. Also to add in that the skate park ambassador program, which is getting a lot of positive attention, has been postponed until further notice as well. Also within the communication, there's indication to public about the town office itself, and just asking the public just to minimize physical presence in the office. We know it's going to happen. People need to be served certain ways, and we certainly will comply. We're just asking for the public just to, if they can do their business with the town in alternate ways as suggestions and options, please consider to do that. But we're here to serve, and we will not serve due to the current restrictions, but asking just the public to just consider those requests. Just a few of the details on the restrictions. Starting May the 5th, additional restrictions came into effect for regions with at least 50 cases per 100,000 people. And we know that these will remain in place for at least the 3 weeks. Province-wide restrictions prohibiting all indoor gatherings. And just to remind council, we are in the high activity zone, being in Red Deer County, of course, in the classified Red Deer South. But for what I understand, we are within that restrictive zone. So yeah, so outdoor social gatherings, 5 people maximum. Funeral services, 10 people maximum, as well as weddings, places of worship, 15 in person maximum, which is great. There's some little bit of attention on social media versus funeral services versus places of worship, 10 versus 15. As we know that the school system has been adjusted, province-wide K-12 is online learning until May the 25th, but also that childcare facilities can remain open. Indoor fitness and recreation are not permitted, as is outdoor fitness and recreation as well. The restaurants, bars, pubs, etc., all in-person dining is prohibited, including patios. However, there's food takeout, curbside pickup, and delivery options. On the retail side, 10% of patrons, 10% of fire code occupancy, or 5 out customers, whichever is greater. And we do know that personal and wellness services must close until further notice as well. So just a few things in there, council. Again, if there's any questions regarding ECC, I'll attempt to answer those for you.
Questions?
Your worship, I have one question. Is the skate park itself, does it have specific guidelines, or is it just treated like a playground, or how does that?
And I'll start if there's anything else to add, administration, but it is considered like a playground. It's signed accordingly, and to just proper spatial requirements, etc. But it's considered a playground under that definition.
Thank you.
Okay, well, if there's no further questions of the CEO, would someone like to move, we accept his report for information?
I will.
Oops, sorry.
Councillor Bates? Those opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Next is the control action. Action control plan. I'm curious on the one item, are we still, how close are we to making a deal on a minivan? Anyone know?
Megan, do you know that one?
Can I unmute? Okay, there we go. Can you guys, yes, so we actually have a transportation committee later this week where we'll be discussing the van. We'd actually got some positive notification on a grant application just earlier this morning. So yeah, we'll be having that conversation, I believe, on Thursday with the transportation committee and making a bit of a game plan as to what option we would like to pursue there.
Stephen, would you mind maybe providing council an update, putting you on the spot a little bit, just on the status of the heliport?
Yep, we got preliminary drawings from them. They're just out for costing right now. Still on target to have available for council in the end of May was our deadline.
Okay. All right, any other questions on those action control items? We have a motion then to accept them for information.
I'd so move, your worship, that we accept for information.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Anyone opposed to the motion? Carried. Thank you. All right, the next item, of course, is the discussion on the bylaw research. Council disclosure bylaw research.
Me, your worship, can you hear me?
You betcha, Vanessa, yes.
I apologize, I don't have a video, but not missing much. So the purpose of this report is to bring back some research for you guys around formal statement of disclosure bylaws. Back in March, part of the follow-up from the Sage Analytics Code of Conduct investigations, they suggested that we think about adopting such bylaw to provide greater clarity and transparency of council's personal and business interests. Council can create a disclosure bylaw under section 171 of the MGA, and a bylaw would require that you file with the designated officer of the town your family's names, the employers of council, corporation or publicly traded corporation that the council is holder, director, or officer of. Anyone in the family that has voting shares of more than 10% shares of a corporation, and each partnership or firm with which council is a member. Also require the designated officer to compile the list of the names reported and them on record at the town. So recently, the town of Okotoks approved a disclosure bylaw in April, and theirs actually makes them available on the website, as the city of Edmonton has one that's a bit older and they just kind of keep it on file. There are a few other municipalities that formally do that right now. And either way, with or without the bylaw, of course, councillors must disclose their interests and act accordingly in council chamber. That won't change anything whether you. So really, this has been all provided for information for you and for council to discuss what direction they may like to see, perhaps the next term of council. So you can either accept this as information or direct administration to draft disclosure bylaw.
Okay, Vanessa, the proposal for this, it's not a requirement of the MGA, but it's just recommended, may consider.
It's an extra step. You're definitely required to make sure you pay attention to your own pecuniary interest and declare any and stay out of chambers if that kind of discussions are going on. But it is not mandatory.
It is?
Not mandatory, no.
No. Okay. Any discussion on this matter? Well, we've got a couple proposals there. Vanessa has on either we just accept this for information or direct administration to draft a council disclosure bylaw.
Your worship, I think the only way that it kind of adds more onto what is already in place is if, like Okotoks, those documents would be filed publicly on the website. And if you have someone that's not disclosing, and this is sitting with a designated person at the town office and not publicly available, like, I don't know that it would make anybody disclose. And like, what is the purpose of this? That I think the best thing is that, you know, we have elected officials that are going to disclose when they have a pecuniary interest. And I don't know, I have mixed feelings about it. I'm not sure that everybody wants their, you know, their personal investments and everything out in full light. And I hope that people would be honest enough to recuse themselves from discussions.
Yeah, I agree. I can see the disclosure of interests in you might have in local businesses or something. You disclose that because, you know, then those things come into mind when we're discussing decisions. But yeah, disclosing personal wealth and all that stuff, you gotta wonder.
Well, your worship, like, it's not asking you to disclose that unless you own more than 10% of the voting shares. But I think any of this is, you know, you're getting into people's personal lives, and do we want to go there? I think is my question to the rest of council. And I do see both sides of it. But is that, do we need to do it? And do we want to, I guess?
Any other comments?
Yeah, your worship, through to Councillor Barkley, I tend to agree. However, we need to make it quite clear that it is the responsibility of the individual to declare, and I guess that's where I have some angst with that. You know, and maybe this is more of a question for our legal people, like who can call a code of conduct if the individual doesn't declare at the time of discussion. I guess that's what my concern is, because the onus rests with the person that's actually declaring the conflict, the pecuniary conflict. So, you know, as long as, you know, we're all very honest, open, transparent counselors, but if another counselor sees that there's a perception of a pecuniary interest. Can he make the call? I guess that's a question that I might direct to the CAO or to the legal people, to our legal group. So that would be my only concern. Thank you.
CAO Becker, have you had any experience with these in the past?
Well, your worship, I've never been part of developing a bylaw such as this. I think it is trending, whether it's now or later, but I think you'll see more of these moving into the future.
So
Any
I
other
think,
comments, Councillor Rehberger?
so I'm looking at the form here and I don't see anything on there that I would be uncomfortable disclosing. And I think, I just think it makes everything more transparent. So maybe it's a little premature, but I think it's a good idea myself. I don't, and it's like Councillor Barkley said, it should be on the website for public information. And I just think then there's no gray areas if it's out there.
Well, we can certainly draft up what would be acceptable in this type of document, but may have some limitations, but. Well,
I think they're asking, like administration is asking that we either make a motion to bring a draft forward. Yeah. Okay.
Are you prepared to make that motion?
Sure. Yeah, no, I will make that motion. I agree with Councillor Rehberger. He has valid points and CAO Becker, I mean, it's trending and let's get in front of it, I guess.
Okay, we have a motion then to direct administration to draft a council disclosure bylaw. Discussion. Anyone opposed to the motion? Motion's carried then. Thank you. All right, moving on then to 7.2, an RFP regarding the arena dehumidifier.
I guess that means I'm up.
Hi, Trish.
How are you? How's it going?
Good.
Good. So the purpose of the request for decision is to award the contract for the arena dehumidification project. The project entails the complete design, installation, supply of the Deskin dehumidifier at the Innisfail Twin Arena. We had 2 successful candidates submit for tender, which closed April 9th. Train at a value of $301,989 plus $17,000 for an extended 5-year warranty, and StarTech Services at a cost of $303,000 with an included 5-year warranty for equipment. The difference in price there basically comes down to their labor costs. We did a rough cost estimate and didn't feel that there would be adequate labor to justify those additional costs. So the recommendation would be that council approves the award of the arena dehumidifier project to StarTech Services for $303,000 to be funded from the MSI funding.
Okay, is someone prepared to make a motion to support that?
I would so move. We follow the recommended action.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Rehberger. Discussion.
Then I would have a question through to Trish. How many actual units does this include?
It's 2 units, so 1 for the red, 1 for the blue. Went that way just so that both rinks can act independently. I've done a dual rink 1 dehumidifier system before, and you end up with more trouble than it's worth.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question through to Trish. just to remind us all, this is to help us get the ice in, particularly if it's warmer, and does it, like, we're not at this point deciding extending any schedules, but it kind of, what is our schedule for going in and out? Just to remind us.
Schedule for we usually start the plant end of August, then starting ice build up right away. So that first part of September, and then usually ending the end of March tentatively. So.
And without these, it's very difficult if it's warm to start, right?
Yeah, so in order to do the ice install, you want to have a relatively low humidity because you're misting the air with water to try to build the ice anyways. So 2 summers ago, we had rain and the inside building humidity was 99%. Not conducive to ice install.
Thank you.
Well, the good thing is too, is it extends the life of your structure too.
Does.
Your worship, Trish, is there any, just for some more information, what are some of the other benefits to the dehumidification install to the arenas? Like, obviously we've listed a couple, but is there any others that are pretty significant?
You end up with a more controlled environment. We keep the humidity down on a regular basis, which means we extend the longevity of any steel structure of that building just because of the humidity. There's less chance of mold, bacteria growth, and potentially better ice quality.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No. Then we have a motion. Everybody's good. Okay. Anyone opposed to the motion? Carried. Thank you. And thanks, Trish.
Thank you.
All right. Next item we have is the North Area Structure Plan bylaw 1672-2021.
All right, thank you. So we're looking to present the new North Area Structure Plan bylaw 1672-2021 for consideration of first reading and the scheduling of a public hearing. So back in the spring of 2020, council awarded the contract to PCPS and Tagish Engineering to complete an update of the North Area Structure Plan, which was originally adopted in 2001 to reflect updated plans and studies, as well as the land annexation undertaken since the original adoption. The other primary aim of the project was to create a planning framework that would support the slower progression of land development that we are experiencing now, and to eliminate the need for another layer of planning in the form of outline plans for industrial areas. So really a lot of the focus of this document was to increase our development readiness for particularly the industrial area to the east of C&E Trail within this plan area. So this project included extensive consultation with landowners as well as agency stakeholders, particularly in the undeveloped areas of the plan. This included extensive direct contact with those property owners, as well as 2 virtual open houses. So the plan consists of 2 general parts, a background and context section followed by policies. So the policy covers land use, open space, drainage, transportation, services, and implementation. I'll maybe get Vanessa, if you could scroll to, what page is it? It looks like page 132 of the agenda. That's just the land use concept map that shows the plan area for this updated North Area Structure Plan. So it does include approximately 3 new quarter sections. So the southeast 33, southwest 34, and southeast 34. Those were not included in the previous north area structure plan. So we now have a good high level overview of the road and development patterns for those areas. As well as part of the process, Tagish Engineering did some pretty extensive work just looking at how this area can be best serviced, and will allow sort of some more flexibility in terms of how development progresses and how we can address servicing depending on which areas advance more quickly through the development process. So I'm not going to go through the document in detail. I believe PCPS did present to council a draft that is essentially unchanged from what is here, as well as what was presented at the landowner public open houses that were held back in the beginning of March, I do believe. But certainly if there's any questions, otherwise we are looking for consideration of first reading to the bylaw, as well as the scheduling of June 14th for the public hearing.
Okay, thank you, Megan. Is someone prepared to make a motion in support of that recommendation?
I will make that motion, your worship.
Thank you, Councillor Barclay. Open discussions. Okay, well, we have a motion then to proceed, give it this first reading and call a public hearing meeting for June 14th, 2021. Everybody understand the motion? Anyone opposed to the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. And an RFD regarding building fire SCO service level changes.
Okay, so looking to get formal direction from council to pursue a new service delivery model for building safety code services through an internal position, as well to expand fire inspection services through that position as well. So again, the town's an accredited municipality under the Alberta Safety Codes Act, meaning that we as the town are responsible for the administration, permitting, and compliance for building, fire, electrical, plumbing, and gas safety codes disciplines. The town currently utilizes IJD inspections for all of those disciplines, with the exception of fire. The town itself, through the fire chief, administers our fire inspections on a request and complaint basis. The town has identified that coordination between development, safety codes, and fire permitting can be challenging and has resulted in confusion for applicants. In addition, the town has identified many properties in the community that are not in the best condition, but apart from responding to complaints, the inspectors have a limited ability and resources to conduct additional inspections. The town's current contract with IJD expires at the end of May 2021. And administration has identified an opportunity to pursue the creation of a new combined full-time building and fire inspector position that would take on the building permitting area, as well as allow for expanded fire inspection capacity to be addressed on a regularly scheduled basis. So likely every 24 to 36 months. So the creation of the new position will be primarily funded through building permit revenue. The 3-year average building permit revenue has been approximately $75,000 over the last 3 years. It is estimated that if building construction totals exceed 12 million, which we have done in numerous years in the past, just not so much the last couple, we would see approximately $100,000 in permit revenue. And that would offset the cost of a full-time position. So the salary for the transition period is estimated to be between $40,000 and $60,000 and can be accommodated within the current year's budgeted overall salary expenses. Moving forward, the salary expense will need to be appropriately budgeted. If approved, town will negotiate the transition of building services from IJD effective January 1st, 2022, allowing for recruitment and training of the new position. And this will be a position that will be shared between community services and fire and protective services. So the change is anticipated to result in an increased service level for both permitting as well as overall community safety through the ability of the position to operate in a more proactive manner. Administrative processes and training will be developed for frontline staff and other associated staff for that building permitting function. So at this time, we're looking for council to approve the new service level and delivery model for building and fire code services as presented.
Okay, do we have a motion? Someone prepared to make that motion to staff recommendation?
I also move the recommended action.
Thank you, guys. Councillor Reaper. Discussion?
Your worship, through to Director Jenkins. Just a question, Director Jenkins. Are there skill sets out there in the private sector that that will fill this position? Or do you anticipate that there may be some issues around finding the right person, the right fit?
So it would be a specialized set of skills. Many of our existing firefighters have the ability to cover the fire inspection component. Finding someone experienced in that building code practice might be more challenging, but that's part of why we were hoping to give ourselves a fair bit of time on this recruitment and transition process so that we can spread our net and hopefully find a suitable individual, and if we aren't successful, we can adjust course from there as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Your worship, through to Director Jenkins. You've mentioned the salary estimation, and is it fair to assume with the benefits that it still would be pretty much a blended SOF for this year?
Yeah, we would probably, depending on when we're able to secure that individual. But yeah, the indication from finance is that for this year, during that transition period, that there is room within our current budgeted salary expenses overall to accommodate for this year. Not sure if that answers your question or not.
It would be a trade-off versus the ongoing expense of a similar contract.
I guess because we're looking to have sort of an overlap this year where IJD is still providing the service, but we've filled the position to allow for that transition where we will kind of be not directly recouping all of those permit costs right away.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, well, if there's no more discussion required, then we have a motion. I'll ask the question. Anyone opposed to this motion? Motion is carried then. Thank you. Thank you, Megan. And next, you're not done yet there, Director Jenkins. Downtown design interventions.
Yes, so we are looking to present the proposed downtown design interventions for comment and funding commitment from council. So back in March, council approved an adjustment to the scope and some budget reallocation of a portion of the funds originally scheduled to be a part of the downtown urban design plan as an operating project. So of the original $50,000 project budget, administration was directed to utilize up to $10,000 for design concepts for downtown spaces, $20,000 to support policy and graphic updates to the downtown area redevelopment plan, and then $2,000 for supplies associated with a crosswalk design contest. So the design concepts have been developed, and administration is proposing that we focus on 2 primary spaces for the 2021 season. That being the vacant lot that we've secured the lease on at the corner of 50th and 50th, and the mid-block crosswalk cut through between Lilac and Lace Collective House and TNT. For those being where we focus our efforts for this year. So we are requesting that the balance of the project budget, so $20,000, which would include the crosswalk amount, be put towards the installation and events associated with Main Street and the 2 identified sites. This is intended to include lighting, paint, barriers, plantings, structures, and street furniture. Yeah, and we're, the document is attached there with some of the design concepts of some very colorful ways to increase interest in our downtown. We've already had some preliminary conversations about how to implement and how to get some of those things actually constructed. And yeah, at this point, we're just looking for that motion to reallocate the balance of that operating project towards the actual implementation of these design concepts.
Okay. Someone prepared to make a motion that we support this staff recommendation?
I would make that motion, Your Worship. Councillor Bates.
Bates. All right, any further discussion? No, anyone opposed to the motion?
Your Worship, I just had a question for Director Jenkins. So that these drawings, Director Jenkins, are those just some concepts that you're looking at, or?
So those are some concepts and some ideas, and that document also includes some of the sort of implementation, the materials or the different ways you can approach that. So yeah, we aren't necessarily looking to replicate exactly what's in there, but we'll be utilizing those concepts and those ideas to kind of refine them as we get materials and people on board to come help us paint and build and do all those things.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? And anyone opposed to the motion? I'll ask you once more. Oh, okay, motion's carried. Yeah, an RFP regarding the 2021 first quarter financials. Erica.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So I'm here to provide the first quarter financial information to Council. So each year, administration presents quarterly financials for Council to review and approve. The financials currently being presented are for the first quarter of 2021, January 1st to March 31st, sorry. Administration has reviewed the financial information being presented. The actual figures will have been compared to the approved final budget for the year. The 2021 final budget was approved on December 14th, 2020. And administration believes this to be a true representation of the state of the financials as of March 31st, 2021. So the financials show an overall revenue of 12% budgeted compared to a 25% measurable for the first quarter. Upon reviewing 2020 first quarter, this is actually 1% higher than last year. So some of the revenues to note are business licenses is at 101%. We generally do collect this all at the beginning of the year with some trickling in throughout the rest of the year. Animal licenses is at 75%. This is the same thing. We generally collect most of this at the beginning of the year. We have put in the allocation of the most grant has been in here. So 39,951 for COVID wages and expenses, and then 76,940 to FCSS. Now we are normally a bit lower for our revenue for the first quarter, and that's just because we haven't recognized that tax revenue. It's still sitting at 0. And we always recognize that during the second quarter for each year. So the financials show an overall expense of 19% of budgeted compared to 25% measurable for the first quarter. And compared to 2020, this is the same percentage we saw at that time. So some of the expenses to note are salaries is at 22% currently. So this is in line with that 25% benchmark. Membership fees is at 45%. So this is a bit lower in 2021 compared to 2020, but most are paid during that first quarter of the year. Insurance is at 102%, and we always have to pay that at the beginning of the year as well. When it comes to gas utilities, the winter months are always more expensive at the facilities like the arena and the pool, as well as the buildings here at the administration and things like that. And grants to others is high because that includes the library requisition and FCSS requisitions that we have to pay at the beginning of the year as well. Based on my review, all revenues and expenses are within budgeted approvals for the quarter. However, with the continued closure of some of the town's facilities, pool, arena, and programming, the town will experience a loss of revenue in those departments. And the pandemic expenses to date are $2,500 and 58 cents and $42,024.24 for wages. And we will continue to track and allocate any time and expenses that are a result of COVID, just as we did for 2020. The expenses are an increase to our expense line, but the wages, however, are just a reallocation due to COVID tracking. So I am looking for council to approve the first quarter financials as presented.
Okay, thank you, Erica. Someone prepared to make that motion?
Yes, your worship, I would make the motion that we accept first quarter financials as presented.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hill. Any discussion? Anyone opposed to the motion? Okay, carried, thank you.
Your worship, I have a question through to Erica. It wouldn't have changed a vote or anything. Are we hearing anything or that we might see another most in 2021?
I have not heard anything yet. Todd, have you heard anything?
A little bit. Minister McIver, I think it's LGA, the Municipal Leadership Caucus, indicated to the audience that if you have not heard of one currently, it's likely not going to happen. So we're not expecting that funding to come through in 2021.
Thank you.
Okay, you have the correspondence in front of you.
May I ask a question about the correspondence, maybe through to Councillor Harrison and Bates and maybe CEO Becker with respect to the support for the RCMP? I have listened to the AUMA presentations that were done a while ago, but both the presentations, and I don't know, I kind of feel we should be doing the same, and whether we put a notice of motion on maybe next meeting's agenda, or is this something that the Police and Safe Community Committee is still looking into?
I think I heard the CAO mention in passing in his earlier report that he would be bringing that to the committee.
Okay.
Todd, did you say that, or?
Your worship, the Councillor Bates, that's correct. We have not had any level of depth in the conversation regarding the province looking at an alternate service provider for policing.
So your worship, through to CEO Becker, so like, would you have somebody present to the committee so they kind of understand what this is about and what we're looking at? I think there's, some misunderstanding even in the community about how RCMP works and the federal funding. And, there's certainly, you listen to those presentations. I mean, there's certainly no guarantee that it would be less money or better service. And I think we're served well, and we seem to have a great relationship with the RCMP. So
Your worship, to Councillor Barclay, it'd likely be me with some of my workings with AUMA. Chris, Staff Sergeant Matichuk, and Manager Leaf probably carry the load on that in conversation, but likely me. But I suggest that you don't necessarily need to wait for that presentation. That's going to be a while yet. If council feels that you wish to advance your advocacy role regarding RCMP, you can certainly do that at any given time, or you can wait and get the advice of the committee. Either way, but yeah, maybe council wishes to have another level of conversation regarding some of those pieces to it, because one thing I learned recently, and we haven't heard a whole lot, is RCMP is also upping their costs associated with, we know of the negotiation with the union and that payback from 2017, which we've budgeted for. But there's also a conversation I'm hearing regarding RCMP and upping their guns and their armor, all that kind of stuff we have not heard a whole lot about. So maybe it's an engagement between the committee and council, just to maybe one-stop shop and hear that information firsthand, with full detail on that agenda item, and then you can provide guidance from there.
your worship, through to CEO Becker, whatever you feel is the best path, I'm fine with. But I would like, I think, for us to have some conversation about this for sure at some point, or some information even, I'm not sure how much everybody else is tuned into this or not, but we're seeing a lot of letters in the correspondence package.
Yeah. It's likely, Councillor Barclay, that this topic would be part of the next Policing and Safe Communities Committee on their agenda for discussion.
Sure, and I'm more than comfortable letting that happen for sure.
Okay, any other comments? No, if not, would someone like to move that we accept these correspondence for information?
I'd so move, your worship, that we accept for information.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison.
Just
Anyone opposed?
sorry.
You got a point, Mr. Becker?
Yeah, I do, your worship. Just to highlight number 4 on the correspondence, it's an award coming to the town very near future, but we're getting a lot of attention regarding the solar farm, but also the social policy associated with the partnership with Elemental Energy. So we're getting in some of our media conversations where there's podcasts with different organizations, but we are getting a lot of attention. So we did submit the concepts out on a few places. Obviously, Parkland Airshed Management Zone, we did make an application on that, and we did receive an award for that partnership and programming in relation to the solar farm. So I think it's important to put a spotlight on number 4 of the correspondence.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting. Okay, now did we have a motion? Sorry.
Your worship, just through to CEO for a second. Is there going to be a formal presentation, CEO Becker, to Mayor Romaine, or to the town? Like, is that, or not so much?
To Vanessa Stewart, do you guys know if there's something being coordinated in relation to receiving that award?
I believe there's a virtual, I don't know if you call it a gala, but a virtual awards presentation. Ken probably knows the date off the top of his head, but I don't. It's sometime in June.
So we'll have Mayor Romaine get his tuxedo ready for the virtual gala in June then. Perfect.
You bet. Filming will likely take place in the week of May 17th, but anyway, I know Ken's been working on it. All right. Now, do you think someone is prepared to make a motion to accept these correspondence? Did we make that motion? Oh,
Your worship, Councillor Harrison, yes, I did make that motion.
you did. I'm
I
sorry.
will reaffirm that motion that for information.
Thank you very much. Anyone opposed to the motion? Motion's carried. Thank you. Open mic, quickly go around the room. Start off with Councillor Hill. You're back at it.
Hi there, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, no, nothing too terribly much. I guess one thing that's great to see that continuously happens is that our service groups are even given the hard time that we're all facing, and seeing that the work and effort that our service groups are doing within our community and bringing some ideas forward. I just, that to me, that's a sense of community and the sense of the town that we live in. And I'm really encouraged by that. And I really hope that that their momentum can keep growing and for all service groups. And yeah, that's just really uplifting to see that all the negativity we're being consumed by, that service groups can still try to make a difference in their community. But other than that, Your Worship, I don't have much more to add. Thank you.
Councillor Bates.
I had MPC last week. It's relatively quiet this week, mostly understanding and adapting to the new restrictions in my personal recreation. Thank you.
All right. Councillor Barkley.
Yes, had MPC last week and Parkland Foundation. And tomorrow have the Economic Development Court Leadership Group. Also, I guess through to CEO Becker and Director Kennedy, I did have a resident approach me about dust control on Woodland Road around the condo building that's on Woodland. I guess it's quite dusty, and you know, the dust comes up and settles onto the balconies on the west side of that building, and it's very unpleasant. So I don't know, maybe you already do some dust control, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention. And sorry, I was going to send an email and I forgot. So you should do that instead of this, but.
No, I appreciate the feedback. So we do typically, do some dust control along that Woodland Road there. I can review that with the management there and talk about maybe a little calcium, reapplying calcium along there as well. So
thank you very much.
Councillor Rieberger.
Okay, we do have a committee struck to be looking at the Canada Day celebration. So we met last week and we're meeting again this week to see what kind of COVID friendly things we can do. I did attend a course last week on training for library trustees, which I found quite interesting and forwarded information on to you people. And then coming up this week, I have a transportation committee meeting as previously mentioned. That's it.
Okay, Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Your Worship. Fairly quiet week. I missed MPC last week. I had another commitment, and I do apologize to the group for not being there. However, maybe through to Councillor Barkley and CAO Becker, are we in a position for you to give an update to council on the core leadership group? I know you've been having a number or numerous meetings. Is there something that that can be shared at this time, or are we still a little premature with that group. And the second question I have through to Vanessa is, today was the cutoff for the Urban Hens program, and I was just wondering what kind of uptake we had. Thank you.
So,
Right, who's first?
so your worship, Councillor Harrison, core leadership group, just to confirm its relation to exploring discussion regarding economic development entity. I've had 2 discussions with a group of individuals in the community. We have one slated scheduled for tomorrow. It's anticipating that the 4th meeting will be a bridge into council directly with this core leadership group and the facilitator. So we'll figure that out tomorrow. But yeah, so we're just advancing the conversation, kind of lead it into council with kind of a review of what was discussed and hopefully a path moving forward. That's the intent. So it's coming shortly if that fits for you, Councillor Harrison.
Okay, thank you very much, CEO Becker.
Answer your question around the hen applications. We still did just receive one application, and they were advised that they can come in tomorrow and pay the annual fee and set up a time for their inspection right away. And we're going to keep advertising on a first come, first served basis for the rest of the program for the other 4 households that are available.
Okay, thank you very much, Vanessa.
Okay, I haven't got much either. I had a busy week, although with the conversations with media and citizens at large in regards to the May the 15th proposal that was going to be very well attended apparently, but actually after, as you all know by now, that after we had had some discussion, the RCMP and Alberta Health Services with the Mr. Carrot, I guess, they've agreed to cancel the project on May the 18th or 15th. I'm not sure he's talking about a Canada Day celebration too, but I don't know where that is, but I wouldn't think he would think he could do one for Innisfail because he's not part of our facility now. So we may need some clarification there but I don't, does anybody know what he has intended for July 1st?
Your worship, just what I've been picking up on social media and some of the videos that have been put out. It appears that it's in conjunction with a Northcott rodeo, and there hasn't been, as I've heard, any location determined. That's all that I've heard through social media.
Likely the same location as the last rodeo then. Yeah. Okay, yeah, it hasn't been a pleasant week, but I did speak a little bit on council's behalf, and that I didn't think council would have any objection to me objecting to it, and that they were. I felt you would all, with our discussions, we're all coming from the same direction. So I took it upon myself to indicate that to the press. Hope you don't think me presumptuous, but you know, it's been an interesting week. Let's put it that way. Anyways, I don't have much else other than I've got a number of meetings this week with wastewater, freshwater, you name it. But is there anyone out in the virtual world there that would like to bring anything up in an open mic opportunity?
Doesn't appear so, Your Worship.
No?
Nope.
Okay, all right, well, then I guess if there's nothing else, we will entertain a motion. Well, we have some up and coming events there, but that's not too much to deal with. But other than that, a motion to move in camera.
Your worship, I would make the motion that we move in camera.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hill. Anyone opposed? Motion's carried. Take a couple minutes break.
Everybody have their link to go in camera?
Yes.
Close this meeting and then go in the email?
Yes.
Okay, good. Bye.
Bye.